This is Cutaneous Chemistry. It's a show that we started to do more or less on a weekly basis to talk about science of skincare and what happens in our skin. And it's not about promoting any products. It's not about promoting our brand. It's honestly more about educational part of the skincare and how you can learn more to make better decisions, make better choices in terms of what your skin needs and how to select those products, and basically how you can really maximize the dollar you spend for bettering your skin. Okay? So are we ready? So a lot of you guys have been asking about preservatives and the parabens concern, that scary thing that they put in our head and really turned the cosmetic industry upside down, because everybody, including us, had to scramble to make paraben-free preservatives. Now, a lot of people say that was justified. A lot of people say that was not justified. I'm not going to tell you what my opinion is till the end of the presentation, and I want you to just, let's go through, listen to what I have to say very scientifically, but it's not something that's going to go over your head. I've made it very, very simple. So stay with me and let's discover the world of the preservatives and why we need them, and what are they, what do they do for us, and how do they help us have a stable skincare products. So let's start about parabens, separating the myths from the science. All right, so we have these culprits. They're called bacteria, yeast, and mold. I'm a biochemist, but my biology part is not as strong as my chemistry part. So I'm going to tell you about a little bit of the biology part it's very, very simple. So we have these culprits, yeast and mold. These are little microorganisms that, like the rest of us, they like to eat and consume energy and reproduce. And during this process, they make things go bad. They make things get spoiled, okay? So that's why we have a refrigerator. We put our food in the fridge because they don't like the cold temperature. At room temperature, they can grow much, much, much faster, okay? So we have the bacteria. They can spoil the products. They can cause skin infections. Yeast can do the same thing. They cause irritation, infection. Candida albicans is one of the common yeast that we're worried about. Staphylococcus aureus is one of the common bacteria that usually damages our product and grows in there, and it can damage our skin. And then we have mold, Aspergillus niger. All right? So these are not just, there are many, many kinds. I'll just give you a simple example. So we need to protect the skincare products that we buy from these buggers, all right? So, look, when we manufacture or design or formulate the skincare products, they usually contain water. Also, they have nutrients. And this creates a perfect breeding ground for these yeast and mold and bacteria that can grow and cause problems. They spoil the products. In that process, when the product is going bad, at the same time when it goes on your skin, it can harm your skin. So you lose the product and you're going to damage your skin. So what we need to do, we really need to preserve the products. Now, when we get to the preservatives, there are, remember, we have yeast, mold, all these examples that I'm telling you, we call them antimicrobial because the antimicrobials control all three of them, okay? The yeast, mold, and fungi, okay? So this is the important thing. But as formulators, we want products that control, we need ingredients that preserve, that control all three of them. Now, there is a group of preservatives that are called antimicrobial. That means that they control all three. Sometimes, and then these things that are controlled, their parabens are one of them. That's why they were so popular. So when you use a paraben in the formulation, they used to control yeast, mold, and fungi and bacteria. All of them, they were being controlled. But then if we don't want to use parabens, then we get a little bit limited. So we have to combine different things together to get the results that the paraben are giving us. Then we have the formaldehyde donors that almost did the same thing, but then we have another issue with formaldehyde. So when we are talking about the parabens, these group, how they're different from these antimicrobials that are formaldehyde donors. These guys disrupt the cell membrane. So the bacteria or these microorganisms, they have a membrane. Okay, that's like our skin. What these preservatives do, these antimicrobials, they go and disrupt this membrane. They break it, so then now the bacteria is going to get completely, everything inside the bacteria comes out and it destroys it. That's their mechanism. And these guys, they damage what's inside the bacteria or the mold or the fungus. So the mechanism, how they work, is a little bit different. So formaldehyde donors, because of, formaldehyde is carcinogenic, a lot of people are getting concerned about that. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit as to why that concern is really negligible. You shouldn't be concerned about it. And then we have ingredients that are just kill the bacteria or just kill the fungi. And the example of these are like benzoic acid, sorbic acid, phenylethanol. So when you look at these and you look at the back of your label, when you see these things, now you know what these things are doing, why they are there. And then there's another group that we call them the natural alternative ones. Like we have rosemary oil, grapeseed extract, fermented filtrates, and so these are the ones that are considered natural preservatives. Then we come to some multifunctionals. This is the most important part. Because now, if we look at the definition of the preservative, in the regulations, there's an annex. In European regulations, in the American regulations, is not specifically listed. So in the European regulations, there's an annex that says the following ingredients, so there's a list, are classified as preservative. So now, if you go into here and you pick something that is not on that list, but it at the same time is controlling the bacterial, yeast, mold, or fungi, it is not considered preservative, but it's still doing the job. So that's why a lot of companies come up with this preservative-free claim. They go to some of these ingredients like caprylyl glycol, ethylhexyl glycerine, or pentylene glycol, or some of these natural things like rosemary oil. They come up with a unique blend that really controls the formulation in terms of not allowing the bacteria, yeast, or more and things like that to grow, but they're not on that list. So technically, then we can say they're preservative-free. That doesn't mean that the formulation is not preserved, okay? So if you look at jam, like blueberry jam, so that really lasts for a long time. Why? Because it has a lot of sugar in it. And sugar on its own, at a high concentration, it is acting as a preservative. So they don't need to add some benzoic acid or other stuff in that jam because they have found another way to preserve that jam. So this is basically, as cosmetic chemists, we look at these ingredients to really maintain the integrity of the formulation, not allowing to go bad, because when they go bad, the efficacy goes down, the smell gets bad, and then it can damage our skin. So we need to preserve our formulations, and we resort to these things. So this is what, as cosmetic chemists, we have access to control the formulation in terms of spoilage. Now, I wanted to give you a little bit of the basic here before I get to the paraben. The focus now is going to be on the paraben story. and then we want to judge it. All right, so let's go back to the paraben story. So how it started, how the whole nightmare for this cosmetic world started back in 2004. There was a doctor, and this doctor with their team, they did a study. They were looking at breast cancer tumors, and they wanted to see what's in it. So they started analyzing. They found 20 volunteers, and they basically did the surgery. They took a sample. They did a biopsy of these tumors. And then they saw that in 18 of 20 people, there was some parabens in that tissue. And then they kind of linked parabens to breast cancer. Well, there is a problem in there, okay? First of all, the study group was very, very small. There was only 20 people. And the fact that they found something in there, that does not constitute the fact that that thing that they found, it caused cancer. So I'm going to kind of give you a very, very crazy analogy. They would have been able to find moisture in all of those 20 samples. So does that mean that moisture causes cancer or causes breast cancer? You can't make that conclusion. Now, there's always two sides to a story, but we need to discuss now the other side. So some people say now, okay, they found these parabens in there, but we looked at a lot of scientific data, and the parabens have estrogenic properties. Now, estrogen is a hormone that basically is a female hormone that regulates our body in terms of many, many different aspects. And they have correlated high concentration of estrogen to breast cancer. And now they say parabens have estrogenic properties. They found some parabens accumulated in these tumors, and now they're saying they're making this big link. And this is where now the scientific world is going to get divided into two. One group that agree with that, and the other group that does not agree with that. So now let me try to give you some examples as to why there's a group that disagrees with that, and I am part of that group. So I've created a chart for you, and this chart kind of allows us to think a little bit differently. Now, before I get to that chart, I want to tell you a little bit about cause and effect, okay? Because sometimes we just say, we look at one statistic, and then we draw a conclusion out of that statistic that is completely incorrect, okay? So there's actually a joke. I'm going to share a joke with you. Many, many years ago, a comedian on air said this joke, and I found that so funny it stayed in my head. It said that they did a study, and they found that 20% of accidents are caused by drunk drivers. That's a really high number. So and then he said, that means that 80% of accidents are caused by sober people. So why don't all the sober people stay off the road and let the drunks drive? You see how you can play with statistics? So you need to look at numbers and bring some sense to it sometimes, because the cause and effect, you can play with that, and you can play with statistics, you can play with numbers to draw some conclusions, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. So let me give you some other examples as to what I talk about this cause and effect. Look, some people say that coffee drinking and productivity, they say that people that drink more coffee, they are more productive. So they did a statistic that say they looked at 100 people that are considered very productive, and all of them drink a lot of coffee. So does it mean that coffee make you more productive? That's not true. It could be that people that are very productive, they get tired, and to get rid of their tired or go to a resting position or something like that, they may smoke or drink coffee. That doesn't mean coffee makes your brain work better or make you more productive. It doesn't, scientifically you can't connect the two that way. Or people say that all those people that they did another study that 100 people when they slept with their shoes, they woke up in the morning and they had headache. So wearing your shoes while you're sleeping causes headache. It can't, that cannot justify it. Because it could be that they were wearing their shoes because of something else, that something else caused the headache. For example, maybe they drank too much the night before and they forgot to take their shoes off, and next morning they had a headache because they were drinking. Had nothing to do with the shoes. Or they were so tired they got home, they were so exhausted, they went to bed and they forgot to take their shoes off, and the exhaustion from the day before gave them the headache the next day. Had nothing to do with the shoes. We are focusing on the wrong thing. So now, keep that in mind, and now let's pay attention to this chart that I'm going to show you. So, we talked about parabens, and we talked about the parabens were found in these tumors, and they have some estrogenic effect. So, that means that parabens are potentially carcinogenic, and etc., etc. Now, let's look at this. I have listed 5 different methods here. These are really scientific methods. I'm not going to get into the details of that, and we're going to post a chart for you. But I'm going to tell you one simple thing. All these methods are a scientific way of determining how estrogenic a substance is. Now, what do we mean by estrogenic? Estrogenic means that molecule is not estrogen, but behaves like estrogen, okay? So, estrogenic. Now, this is the references, 5 different methods that I all use by different things. And now look at this. Pomegranate. It is level, let's just focus on the RBA method. 0.01 to 0.03. Apples are less than 0.01. Cherries 0.01 to 0.05. Berries 0.01 to 0.03. Plums or prunes 0.05 to 0.1. Grapes 0.05 to 0.2. Oranges 0.01 to 0.02. Lemons 0.01 to 1. Grapefruit 0.01 to 0.05. Paraben. Look how small that number got. Methylparaben. Ethylparaben. Propylparaben. Butylparaben. Look how small. They go 0.000001. Okay? So it's like 1,000th of the other one. And the highest one with isobutylparaben is almost equal to grapefruit. So we need to take a look at that. So this study, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, created a lot of fear, and this fear caused a lot of marketing consequences. And even at Isomers, when we believed that there was no issue to parabens, or no issue with parabens, we said, we don't want our consumers to worry or panic or use something that they want to address a problem and then emotionally they're worried, because that's wrong. So we moved away from parabens, and we are using the alternative natural ingredients to basically preserve the formulations. It's not a bad thing, but the reason I brought this up is that we need to be a little bit honest about why we do certain things. And in my humble opinion, parabens at the levels that are used, there is no issue with it. And now, then some other people have come to me and said, argued with me, you know, you're right, but you know what? There are a group of people that they use a specific type of hair products that have higher concentration of parabens, and there's too much parabens in those. No, it's not true. There is a guideline for a concentration of parabens that you can use in a formulation. You cannot go above that. It will become illegal. And then there are certain products, certain type of products, like for example, hair straighteners. So they are saying that people that use a lot of hair straighteners, because now those products have parabens. Now there's a group of those that have also breast cancer. But they forget to look at the other ingredients that are in some of those hair straighteners. It's full of formaldehyde, it's full of other toxic chemicals that they are neglecting, and they're just pinpointing it on the parabens. So I think if we really scientifically want to analyze something, we need to look at the whole picture and put things in perspective. Now, if somebody has already suffering from breast cancer, definitely you need to be careful for anything that has estrogenic activity, because that can trigger it, can promote it. But that doesn't mean that anything that has some estrogenic activity will cause breast cancer. So we need to look at that cause and effect again. You know, as a cosmetic chemist, as a biochemist, I always get annoyed when people try to create a sales technique or a marketing based on fear. I think it's really, really incorrect. It's really, really wrong. And we need to be transparent with our consumers in terms of what is really toxic, what is not really not toxic, etc. And remember this thing. If one thing you remember that toxicity is a function of concentration. Anything at a specific concentration, it will become toxic. Okay? Water is not toxic. You need to drink water to survive. Without water, we cannot survive. You drink 2 gallons of water every day, it will kill you. It becomes toxic to your body because it will damage your system. Okay? Vitamins at certain levels are a must. Vitamin E is a must. Vitamin A is a must. They're called vitamin because they're essential nutrients that we need. You take too much of them, it becomes toxic. So, put things in perspective. If there is a paraben in a formulation and you're going to fill the bathtub in it and soak in it every day for 7 hours, it's not good. But using a skincare product that has 0.05% paraben on a daily basis between 1 to 2 grams on your face, it does nothing in my opinion, unless you're already predisposed to certain cancers that your physician is advising you stay away from anything that is estrogenic, and you should not even be eating grapefruit or drinking grapefruit juice or have any of these ingredients that have any estrogenic activity. So, questions. What do we have as questions? Is it true that natural products are always paraben free? Well, listen, parabens are synthetic molecules. So the only way that a natural product can potentially be contaminated with parabens is that if that grapefruit was harvested in an area that the soil was contaminated with parabens, so the tree kind of absorbed it, or in the manufacturing process, a batch was made with paraben and the vessel was not cleansed properly, another batch was made, and then a little bit of that paraben has been exposed to that new batch. But in general, I think that comment is kind of true. It should be paraben free if it's not formulated with parabens. Are parabens only found in cosmetic products? Parabens are preservatives primarily designed for cosmetic products. So to the best of my knowledge, yes. Can parabens build up in the body? What an amazing, amazing question. Basically, no, because parabens break down. Okay, so as a function of time, when your body is exposed to parabens, it breaks down. It's not one of those molecules that it cannot break down. Like, remember in the old days with the pesticides, there was, some of you guys may be younger, but in the old days there was a pesticide called DDT. Okay, and DDT was actually not a very toxic pesticide. It was very toxic to pests, but not to humans. But the problem with it was that it never broke down. It was like a plastic. It was like a piece of plastic, and it stayed in the environment. It accumulated, so it caused problems. Listen, if you're using a skincare product that is preserved with parabens, in my opinion, it's quite safe. If it's used in accordance to the government guidelines, regulatory guidelines at those concentrations, in my opinion, is perfectly safe, unless your doctor has specifically told you because of any health condition that you may have, you should not be exposed to paraben. For an average healthy individual, in my opinion, there is no problem with parabens. If you can make paraben-free skincare, what is the point of using parabens? What an amazing question. I love you. Okay, look. Parabens are extremely effective. They do an amazing job in preserving the formulation, and they are broad spectrum. They kill yeast, mold, fungi, and bacteria. Finding alternatives, it's really, really difficult, and was very, even for us, was very challenging. So it makes making the formulation a lot easier. FDA absolutely regulates the parabens in cosmetics. There are guidelines as to what you can and what concentration you can use in there. But FDA has not banned parabens in cosmetics, because all the studies that they have been exposed to, they have shown that parabens are safe if they use in accordance with the regulations. To the best of my knowledge, it's always the estrogenic link that they have, and then that because of this study that they found parabens in these carcinogenic tissues. Do you need to be more careful with naturally based preservative skincare in terms of temperature regulations and things like that? The answer truly is yes and no. It depends how that system was put together. So when we tried to investigate and come up with these paraben-free formulations, we took the products through the proper stability tests, and we are sure that those products, if it's stored at the same conditions as with products that are with paraben, they still last for the same length of time, okay? But there are a lot of other formulations that if they didn't do the due diligence and they just said, okay, I'm just gonna use rosemary extract, or I'm just gonna use this, and they didn't do the proper stability test, those products, it's better to keep them in the fridge. Preservative-free, basically, as I tried to explain to you, let me go back to this chart. The question was, what does preservative-free formulation really mean? Okay, look, according to the European Annex, there is a list of preservatives. So they have a chart in there, and it says the following products are preservatives. they're only allowed to be used at these concentration ranges, and they're only allowed to be used in certain types of products. So certain preservatives are only allowed to be used as a rinse-off in a rinse-off product like a shampoo or a cleanser. Some preservatives are allowed to be used in rinse-off and leave-on. There are restrictions for some of these preservatives as to what type of a formulation they can be used in. Now, a preservative-free means that you're using a product that preserves, but it's not on that list, okay? So there's a list of dyes and pigments that can be used to color your foundation or your makeup and things like that. Those are pigments, okay? So if you use a natural ingredient, it still gives you the color, but it's pigment free. I hope I'm explaining this. I hope you guys are. So if it's not on the list and it does preserve, it's considered preservative free. Absolutely not, because when we are designing of our formulations, we take them through a specific process of stability testing. When you do the stability testing and you do the microbial challenge test, then the results will indicate that the shelf life of the product and its stability and efficacy, etc., is not going to be affected at all. What should I cover next time? Did you remember to share and like and follow? Manuela is going to get mad at me if you don't. All right, I'm going to say goodbye till next week, and I'm going to make sure Manuela is here. I'll talk to you later. Love you.